Sorry for the technical issues. My name is waihigakmuturi, and welcome to Let's Create Africa, where we seek to inspire, inform, and highlight change makers in Africa. And today I have a very special friend, I must admit. She's called Murigi. Mercy, just for the sake of people who see you and see how serious you look like, just tell them, who exactly are you and what do you do?
Serious. I look serious. I never look serious anyway. So thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Waihiga. And even for you to introduce and say, change makers. It's interesting that then you thought I could have that conversation. So honor. Thank you for having me. I guess as I have not introduced myself officially, but yes, my name is Mercy Murigi. Kenyan. I love being Kenyan, but African at heart. I feel like we have a story that we have a shared story within Africa. So I'm African at heart. Yes, I work in the nonprofit space within the grant and programs sort of docket. Yeah, and partnerships. Partnership is at the key of what I do as well, because I believe there needs to be bridges between people, between the grassroots and boardroom discussions, between grassroots in one area to another. People who are doing something in Burkina Faso should probably learn from their counterparts in Kenya and so on. So partnerships is also something that is center of my work at the moment.
Okay. Why is this impressive to you? Like, of all the things you could have been doing, why did you choose partnerships and NGOs sector to be specific? Why is that?
Funny story. I didn't start out in the nonprofit space. I started out in tech. That's why in the morning I was so frustrated because the issues seemed to be on my side. I tried doing everything that I thought I could. Anyway, I started in the tech space, but I always knew I wanted to serve at the very root of where I see the issues. And a lot of tech people are doing a lot of amazing things in the grassroots space, in the social development space. So tech is not aside from serving people, but I am a people person. So I felt more comfortable and more gifted in just being, where the programs are, being in the field as much as I can. And when I come back in an office space, in a boardroom space, then I've had a chance to experience how it is in the field. So it was just a matter of gifting, I guess, and calling, I have to say. And the moment I transitioned from full-time tech work into this other space, I could tell I was at home. I was happy, I was comfortable, my results were better. So I guess it's gifting, it's calling, and it's just the weight of just seeing what is happening and wanting to do that tiny thing that I can to be part of the change.
Amazing. So in all your work, what and maybe this is a question you've had before, what makes you wake up every day to go do the same business, the same job?
Both intrinsic and also what I see as the result. When you go somewhere and you're doing probably an enterprise development class for women who probably have not had formal education, and then you go back the same place a year from when you did your first class, and you find a woman telling you, I've been keeping my records, I've been recording my capital and my profit, and you can see her business grow. That makes me want to do the next training. Or when I work with an NGO that formerly was targeting 10 people, and now because of the continuous work you've been doing together, been developing the organization, working on them, just think of their strategy and all that. And then after a year or two, you see them reaching out to 100 from 10, or you see them reaching out to 50 instead of the 10. Then that does give me, the motisha, the morale to continue working. But internally, I think it's just easier. Internally, I wake up happy. Internally, I want to go to work. I keep saying, I hear people saying, it's not always the case where someone loves what they do as their career. I love what I do. I wake up happy that I am going to work. So I guess that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Oh, great. Who are the main beneficiaries of your work? You know, I'm sure there's some people within your space who are like, well, this is what she does. Do I benefit or not? Who are the main beneficiaries of your work, whichever the work is at the moment?
So at the moment, the organization I work with, or is it for the English? But the organization that I work with focuses
Uh-huh.
on organizations. So we see it as a ripple effect. So what we do is we focus on grassroots organizations, entry or big early stages non-profits, and some of the bigger non-profits. So our focus
Mhm.
is those organizations, and our work is to just strengthen their capacity, where possible, support with funding, and then the hope is that there will be a ripple effect to the communities that they work with, to an individual business person, to a child who needs to be supported as they go to school, to communities as they help them with advocacy and such things. So we look at it from a ripple effect point of view. We work with the organizations, we work with non-profits, and then support them to be more effective as they work with communities directly. So at the moment, that is my beneficiary, if you put it that way. But I don't believe in beneficiaries. I gain just as much from them. So it's more
Mhm.
of the partners we work with is non-profit, and then get into the community through those non-profits. And I feel
Okay.
like that's something that I would want to do even long term.
So non-profit. How sensible is non-profit sector within a developing country like Kenya, or better yet, the continent itself? Why a non-profit of all business, for lack of better word, business categories to do the work in Kenya, in Africa?
Um, yeah, that's a tricky one. Tricky one because we've had non-profits from the beginning of time. We've had people just coming in, and sometimes we don't see the change as much as possible. We keep saying that
Mhm,
one of the biggest slums in Africa, Ibra,
mhm, mhm,
has had the most NGOs that you can imagine, and we still
mhm,
have Kibra growing, not diminishing, not becoming more um, inhabitable. If anything, probably becoming worse. So that
mhm,
question is not an easy one to answer. However, in any system in development, it's a matter of complementing each other. You have the government. The government does what it does. It sets policies. It does what it should do. Then you have the
mhm,
private sector. You have the academia. Before you bring out people to work efficiently and effectively and be productive, there has to be some sort of capacity building, some kind of training. So academia comes in. So nonprofit is just a player in that ecosystem. That all of the,
mhm,
all these players play their role. So nonprofit is an important player in this space. That the focus and we wake up thinking and designing and saying this is the problem we have. This is the problem we see. What little thing, what big thing can be done to start moving this into a direction, into an angle that is better than it was before. So I think it's just a matter of waking up and focusing on this and this alone. Just being a non-profit. So I think it's an important player, like I said before, um, and I'm okay being part of it. It's taking funding, taking resources from others, and then channeling those resources to where the space, the specific space that you're working in. When I mean specific is if you're in health, and specifically, let's say working with malaria, and then malaria for children, you get resources from the different other players, and then you start figuring out how can we best sort out an issue of high mortality rate because of malaria for infants, and then you really focus on that area. So it allows
mhm.
you within the non-profit space to focus on a very specific area, and then just drive change in that area. So I just think I ended up as this part of the ecosystem, And so far, I think it works for me. My gifting, my experience, my skill.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your gifting and experience and skill. But even before that, what's your current position at CMA? And maybe you can tell us more about what CMA is.
Okay. So I work as at the moment as partnerships capacity development lead at Children's Mission Africa, which is a non-profit. And we are the regional office to Children's Mission in Sweden that focuses on family. Our pillars are education and economic empowerment. I know that is very broad, but it then depends with our partners. If your work will support a family to improve their income and improving income for a reason, improving income so that your kids can get better health services or can get better education. So improving income with a bigger goal in mind, improve those people and the way they live in. Then we can have, we work with partners like that in economic development. And also in education, we have education partners who run schools, others who just support in resources required by the kids they work with to access quality education. So those are our main pillars. And of course, capacity development, like I said, we work with organizations to just build their capacity. We believe if we have effective, efficient organizations in the space, then the impact to the community, to the end users of our work improves. So our capacity development is also big. And so with my current role as partnerships and capacity development, that's my mandate to just, see that really is stunning, that we're working with our partners to just strengthen the work they are doing. Yeah.
Amazing. So maybe even to direct on that, why do you think your work is relevant with Children's Mission Africa? Why is your work relevant in Africa and in Kenya?
I think one of the things that I absolutely love about working for Children's Mission is the focus. On the individual, the family, the community. At a very, I don't like using big words. We keep joking about these big words. What do they really mean? I wanted to say grassroots, but just really focusing on. We are a small organization, but we're trying to heart small. So we're trying to keep our heart at where the things start. We are not so big that we see that one child in a village where we work or that young person trying to improve their business. So we are trying to keep our approach as personal as we can, and that is for me, I feel it's powerful. Sometimes we look at the picture so much without coming back to why we are doing it. We don't ask ourselves enough the question of the why. And so I feel like at CMA, I get a chance to do both. The big picture, look at strategy level, look at funding at a very big level, but also remember back and ask ourselves why. So that is something that we do a lot. And we work within several countries in Africa at the moment. And that really allows us to, learn from other solutions. You find we do livestock projects as an example. How a livestock project works in Nigeria the same way it works in Zambia. And so it's to question what is Nigeria doing right. It might not be fully replicated in Zambia, but what can we borrow and what can we do to improve the program in Zambia? So the cross-learning has been very powerful. And so I think that helps the African context and not just a country by country context, the ability to learn. And also when the leaders from the different countries come together, they exchange ideas, they exchange their passion, and they go back fuel, and knowing that, I have other people in arms and we have a bigger army all over. When I want to just share with someone what I'm going through in my leadership journey. I know I have friends in my country, but I have friends other places. So I think it's a good model that we have. that we're working not just in one country, but we're working across different countries. So I think some of those things that I feel like have kept me working with Children's Mission is that the question of the why, and we keep asking it, and the focus on the big picture, but also on individuals and communities at a very basic level. But also, I like that we work within many countries in Africa, so we get to learn, we learn to grow our programs by learning and just comparing how others are doing it. So some of the things that have kept me, I guess, working for Students Mission.
Great. And ladies and gentlemen, just before I move on, I would like to say something about Mercy's bio. Impressive as always. She's passionate about philanthropy for development, and to put it simply, she loves to serve, give hope, and contribute to positive, lasting, progressive change, which is at the center of what she does and what she believes to be her purpose in this season of life. She also works in the not-for-profit space and has been a part of various projects, working with both nonprofits and government, both as an independent consultant and longer service within other organizations. She wears many hats with many areas of professional focus, being grants management, program coordination, partnerships, and organizational development. Currently, as she's actually said, she's serving with Children's Mission Africa Trust, the regional office of Children's Mission in Sweden, in her current role as a technical advisor, partnerships, and capacity development. So, I mean, guys, you can hear it's a big title for at least somebody big enough to be respected. And Mercy, thank you for actually making time for us on this occasion. Some of the questions I'm reading from our viewers have been like, how are you empowering others to emulate your work at the moment, be it at a personal level or professional level? How are you empowering others to actually emulate your work?
One of the ways, and I think I've said this over and over since I started speaking, is that we are within the organization, at least Children's Mission, we are very capacity development centric. I think our way of giving is by equipping others to be able to be efficient, effective as they do their work. And I think the main thing is just to see what the end goal is. If you have someone who is better placed to do a project plan, as an example, it means they'll be more organized. They will know what needs to be done by who and what resources they need. Meaning they will take less time, they will use less resources, and their end product will be better, just because they can do a project plan better. And so then when they're more organized, when they go into a community, then the product that they are giving is not just a good idea, but it's a good idea that has been better organized, better coordinated. And so the result is most likely to be better. And so they're helping more people in a way that is more sustainable. And even that builds trust. When you have a community and you're going to train them on enterprise development, as an example, they want to see that, I can give these people my time and my energy. They're organized, they look like they know what they're doing, and they're actually doing things that seem like, they know what they're doing. So for us, capacity development is a big thing in terms of just helping others to then be more effective. And we're hoping that, and we keep saying this, if you, as a team, your team of 5, and you learn some of these things that, we train on, or we work with them on, then you can help others within your network. If you're friends with, if you collaborate with another nonprofit and you're seeing they're struggling with working on their M&E plan, we are encouraging our partners to then supporting those in their networks, to improve their M&E approaches and so on and so forth. So I personally, as Mercy, I really believe in the power of ripple effect. That you might do what might seem small, but the ripple effect of it is something you can probably never even imagine. It might outlive you. If you And this is a good example. If you make sure one child in school, they finish their formal education, they go into higher education, there's a possibility that child will probably mentor other young people, will have a family of his own, and probably then really believe in education and make sure the kids go to school as well. And if you look at that family, for generations to come, you can find, just because the first person in that line got an education, their possibilities are quite different from um, a family where education was not key. So I believe in the ripple effect. So if you work with one organization and just resource them in any way you can, in terms of skills, in terms of capacity in program running programs, and just monitoring results, and then they are more effective in the community, but they are also able to share some of these things um, with people in their network. Personally, I do that a lot as well. I try to mentor as many young people as I can. I work with organizations on a personal level. If they're working on a strategy, whenever I can, I go in, support them to think through it, just ask questions that will hopefully get them to think of something they hadn't. And I'm in a board or two, and so I try and help individual as well, but also within the organization I currently work with.
So Mercy, because this is a great shift from you are in IT to philanthropy. Philanthropy is not known as it's said within the circles. It's not one of the strong points of the African community, supposedly. Please demystify for us first philanthropy for development as a term that you've used, and then two, what do you think about philanthropy in our continent and even our country? Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I work for the nonprofit space, but very specifically, I am very passionate about philanthropy, but philanthropy for development. And again, using big words for sometimes that might make the meaning get lost. I just to mean that, when you're giving support to where you're seeing the support is needed, you need to do it with a plan. You need to do it sort of having thought, what will be the end result of my giving? What will be the end result of me giving my time to training, or giving some funding or some funds from my pocket and saying this will go towards this? What is the end result? And a lot of times I feel like we have to divide it into probably into three. Sometimes there are urgent needs. There are humanitarian needs that you need to meet. People are hungry, and you have to give them food for today. They just need to live today. So you need to just give them what they need today. But even as you invest in, the humanitarian point of view, you have to also look at the long-term issues. If this person is hungry today, you might give them food today, but you might start wanting to look at, how can I do that in 5 years from today? I don't need to come back and give them food. They will be able to get their own food, either through a business they have started, either by using their farm better. Just how can they then be self-sufficient as they go ahead? And so philanthropy for development for me is that as you give, you might sometimes just have to meet the need for today, but you should always have the mind of looking at what needs to be done for this not to be the need in this place a year from today, 2 years from today, and so on. How can you then have a strategy in your giving? And sometimes not even giving billions and millions and stuff like that. Even in your small way, how can you make it, thought through? And sometimes we might need to talk to family, friends, but mostly you need to talk to that person you're working with. But I know that you asked me for some money for school fees. What are some of the ideas you have? What have you been thinking in terms of making sure that you are the one able to provide for school fees for your kids going forward? And then that person will definitely tell you some of the ideas they have. I've been thinking of doing this and that, but I've just not been able to do it because I don't know how to do it. I don't have the financing for it, so on and so forth. And then from there, you can see, how can I use the little or the much I have in terms of resources to then help this person to start realizing that dream. So philanthropy for development is just that. It's just giving with a plan, giving with the end result that you intend to have in mind, so that you're not creating a cycle of dependency. You're not creating a cycle of we have people who are almost like gods, because then there's always someone depending on them. How can we start now clearing that mentality? So that's my view in terms of what philanthropy for development is.
Okay, sorry, just to hold on that. You've mentioned three elements of philanthropy for development, which is one, meeting the urgent needs, number two, long-term issues, stroke empowerment, because that's the point of it all. What is the third one?
The third one, I think, is the in-between. The in-between, where you're starting to, you give people food, the balance, the between starting to walk away from that space. They are not yet completely ready. If, let's say, you're an NGO and you have been supplying, say, I don't know, food, and you're starting to say, if we give you food every day, we'll give you 3 days. But we know, because you started your business, you're making some income. So you are able to meet the other 4 days. Or we'll give you flour, but because you've started your kitchen garden, you will be able to take care of your vegetables. So it's in between, between complete dependency, but you've not started walking away completely yet. You're just in a place where you're helping them still, but not as you were as you're starting out. So I think there is an in-between place where you start piecemeal, starting to give, to walk away from that space. I'm not walking away really. It's just to allow them to now start being more independent. So allowing for more independence and giving that room for them to be more independent. And for them, I mean the people you're working with, if you're working in communities. So the in between, between completely saying, these guys, we have worked together with them, they are completely independent, and the entry point where these guys need the very basics, and you're supporting them to get that. So that's probably, I'd say, the three stages that I see for development.
Great. Just some shout out to some of our audience. That's Charlene Mwangi and Ernest Digits. Thank you so much for joining us also. Then there's Eunice Njeri. Then there's David Makundi. Yes, okay. I'll read the rest later. Actually, Charlene, one of them also has a question to you. But even before I go to their questions, again, another question would be, then what's the place of philanthropy in Kenya and Africa as a whole? What's the place of philanthropy, and as you call it, philanthropy for development?
Big words, but no, not anyway. And I think you've asked that question, and as you're asking it, I realized that you sort of had touched on, how does that look like in Kenya, in Africa? Kenya, because we're in Kenya, as we're having this conversation. But from a bigger picture of at least our continent, Africa, I think we are philanthropists by nature. It's innate, I keep saying my story, and probably how I ended up having, I don't know, maybe the heart I was born with, the desire to do this, but also it was cultivated from how I was brought up. There was always someone at home, a cousin from somewhere, they were going to university, they were transitioning, and so they needed a place to stay for some time. We always had a cousin or a relative staying with us. We always had, please, Mark, you have not been brought up in I've been brought up in a very humble home, but we always had, someone we were paying fees for, and our own fee sometimes was, we'll see how that goes. We had education. We never missed to go to school, but that didn't come easy. My parents really had to, struggle to get our fees at some point. But we always had was being paid for somehow. We always had, maybe you see someone on the street and probably they don't look like they have probably the right kind of warm sweater or coat. My mom would just say, take that coat that you don't wear anymore because you look like you have more than you need, and you don't. And she takes it and takes it to someone and gives. So it's always it's very African to give. It's very African to support people around us, to share that
Oh.
meal too. So I think it is in us. The only thing that I feel now we need to grow is that looking at why am I doing what I'm doing, and especially now that we said there's an ecosystem. We have private sector, we have the government, we have partners from all over the world, international partners. So when they come into our spaces and they say, we know there is an issue with food security, we know there's an issue with this and that, we need to be able to say, we are happy that you're willing to support us. We are happy that you're willing to work with us. But these are our priorities. This is where we see the biggest need is. This is where we see that if an investment was made here and there, we see the most progress being made. So one of the things that as Africans we need to do, we need to be very confident in one, understanding and taking time to understand our needs and the priorities that we have, but also then being confident to speak out those priorities, so that whether we are getting help locally, we are getting African business people, African philanthropists doing any kind of work, we have already also allowed them to come into our space, and we are confident to say you're coming into our space, and we really appreciate that heart. But we also want you to work with us, not to come and say this is what needs to be done, this is what needs to be done. Is to just create that environment where you're co-designing programs and things like that. So philanthropy that is not dictatorial, it's not forced, but it's in line with our priorities and what we have over time realized we need within our spaces. So whether it's internally or externally. But something I need to say, we also sometimes don't have the confidence in ourselves that we should have. We have a lot of people just who are African, born, bred, and doing business, or they're doing their work in Africa. Being able to do big programs, being able to build hospitals, to do big projects. So not all the funding that we can use in Africa has to come from outside Africa. We already have funds, we already have resources, we already have capacity, we already have expertise here in Africa that can be used in Africa. So being careful not to export all our talent, all our expertise, extend also to be very confident to say we have the expertise. We might need some help sometimes, but we do have the expertise. And even in terms of resources, we do have some of it. But how do we channel it in a way that will have longer lasting, more sustainable results in the community? So I think it's just having the confidence to set our own priorities, to collaborate as opposed to being told, this is how things should look like. And also just believing in our expertise and our capacity to deliver those programs, and just being careful that we are trustworthy. So sometimes the issue of trust has been a big issue for Africa. So so that's something we really need to work on. But I think we can do it. Yeah.
Interesting. So Charlene asks, this from Charlene Mwangi, she's asking, great work you're doing, Mercy. That's a kudos to you. What helped you with your transition from tech to the current grants and partnership work?
Wahiga, we should have another session on transitioning. Charlene, thanks for that question. Transitioning was not easy. I will not even lie. It was not an easy, oh, my passion is here. This is where I feel my calling is. And then I just moved into, it wasn't that. But that really kept me going. It kept me fueled and energized to go through the harder days, knowing that I was very clear as to, which direction God was calling me. And also just, so I was very clear. So that kept me going. But transitioning took a few things. One, it was people. Wahiga, you being one of them. I remember when I was,
okay.
earlier on in my transition, if I put it that way. I remember us sitting down and talking, and I asked you, how do you do this? how do you run your own, your own social enterprise? Because I was really working on doing consultancy work, working as an independent consultant. And so you gave me very good insights that I, carry up to today. So thank you, Wahiga.
Honored. I am even
But
shocked.
but people, you need to start now. If you feel you want to move into an area, then start, finding people within that space and talking to them, asking them, how do I go about that? I have an interest in this area. How do I improve my knowledge in the area? Ask them if there's a conference, if there's a training somewhere, please feel free to let me know, so that they are already in that space. So they have more information about that space at that point. So attach yourself to the people who are in the space that you want to get into. And the thing about the social media age right now, sometimes it's not even people you know directly. It's just as saying, Let's Create Africa has very good content on social enterprise stuff. And then you make sure that that's a page you're on and you're on such platforms, and you'll get information from there. So it could be very personal relationships, but it could also be you specifically looking out for people in that space and connect with them at a distance through social media and so on and so forth. The other thing I had to do was learn. I had to go back to school. So when I was doing my master's, I did my master's in international development. I did a program in project management. I did a training in project management. I took up a training in monitoring and evaluation at Dumbre, and so on and so forth. So it took a lot of me learning. And because I was already
Sorry,
in,
just to clarify, is it learning or relearning, or upskilling and such, or reskilling?
it's both. For me, it
Oh,
was both. It was
okay.
skilling because where I was not looking at M&E the way I'm looking at M&E right now. I had no idea what what a baseline is, what indicators are. I did not know what that was. I did not know what a log frame is or a theory of change. I did not know what those things were. So I went to class and got a new skill, something I absolutely didn't have. But then there's some things were just, upscaling, like you're saying, issues of organization, admin issues, and working with people, issues of partnerships. Because already I was doing a lot of work around working with people. So I was already in partnerships, even if it was not titled partnerships. I was already doing a lot of that. So those are things that I needed to improve and then move to the other level. So there was both upgrading what I already knew, but also just learning skills that were very specific to the nonprofit space. And because I knew I wanted to do programming, I wanted to go into the program space. I really then learned a lot on that. And it's not an ending journey. Right now, I'm doing a program on social enterprise. And so as I work with a lot of people, that I need to be able to train and to have, knowledge on issues of enterprise and social enterprise. So now I'm doing a program on a 10-week program on that. So you need to keep learning. So I'd say people, and you need to learn. And the final thing, and I say this a lot, whatever space you want to get into, find ways to be in that space. And a lot of that means volunteering and giving your time. You may not even have the money for it, but for me, as nonprofit, it meant that I was volunteering a bit more. If I have a friend who has a nonprofit, I'd ask them, "What are you guys doing this week?" And I would go and do whatever they were doing, and I would be there, in distribution of something, uniform, distribution of shoes, distribution of that, and I just get to learn, but also meet people. So volunteering helps your skill grow, helps you meet people in that space, but also makes you just start thinking, is this really the transition I want to make before you go too far? So that also helped me then really affirm that I want to really transition from this space to the other space. The first year or two, I could have easily gone back. I already have people I knew, I already had networks, I already had the skill. So all I had to do was say, okay, maybe this is not working for me. I need to go back to what I was doing, what I already know, what I was good at. But by volunteering, by working, by being involved, then it affirmed my decision. I hope that's helpful, Sharon.
Charlene, it was Charlene.
Charlene. I hope that's helpful, Charlene.
It's okay. I want to read something from your bio, if you please would allow me also. I think your bio is quite the standard of what we should be writing in our lives. But anyway, let me say it as it is in regard to Mercy. And guys, please remember, subscribe, like, share, and please send in your questions, send in your queries, send in your comments, critiques, etc. We're waiting to hear from you. You can just post them up on at Let's Create Africa. That's on YouTube or Twitter, or you can go to at waihigakmuturi. That's on Facebook Live. All of it is live. And actually, Mercy, just for your encouragement, Charlene says thank you very much. She's seen the answer, and she had what she needed to hear. So she's also trying to understand how she'll transition in her life. Well, in regard to Mercy, I think we already talked about you having experience in the private sector, but in regard to your technical background, especially in IT, you have experience in the private sector, specifically in tech and in the hospitality sector, having worked as tech support, a systems consultant, and in project management, and eventually in operations as the general manager in a tech company that operates and serves clients in East and West Africa region. My time in the private sector significantly influenced my work and ethic and belief that value and effective service can only be achieved if the client and people being served are at the core of decision making. Which you've mentioned severally, and maybe just a highlight I may want you to touch on. What is your understanding about the human-centered design and its application to even the work that we do, or better yet, what you do? Does it also apply to the rest of society? Yes. What do you think?
Definitely. I, 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 I can't emphasize that enough. People already know. They might not phrase it the way you would, but people know what they need. And even if they don't fully know how to use big words to describe it, they know what their need is. They are the ones who live it every day. And even if it's in private sector, if you're providing a mobile solution, people already know, for me to access this and this service, this is the struggle I have. They might not tell you in very techy ways, I want an app that does this and this, but they will say, it takes too long to do this. Or for me to pay via M-Pesa, I have to go through too many steps, it's annoying. I wish it was faster. They will say that. And then the tech person can then translate that and create an app that reduces the number of steps of paying or whatever it is. So no matter the space you are in, whoever you're working with, whoever you intend to use your end product, already knows what they need. They already know their needs. Let me put it that way. They already know their needs. They already know this is where they're filling the gap in their experience. And so if you don't incorporate them in designing that solution, then you will have a miss. They might consume what you're giving them, but you're getting out. And that's how probably even competition then thrives. Someone who really focused and took their time to understand their end user need, we will have a product that is better and more accepted. And that is the same for private sector, the same for academia. You keep hearing that we have a lot of graduates who don't have the skills needed in the job market. And that's a big gap now. And I know that probably I've seen you doing a lot of future of work discussions. And we have people coming out as graduates and they're saying, I have a master's in this, I have a degree in that, I have a certificate in this. But when they go into the field, there is a disconnect. And that's, again, we need to, even within the academia space, go back and say, what does the job market require? What are the skills of the future? Now with COVID, we have really gone into remote working and things like that. What can I incorporate in a university program to make sure that they're also enabled to do remote working and things like that? So we have to keep the end user in mind always as we're designing programs, and that does not anything about. We go with huge solutions about water. This is an example that has been used millions of times. So let me be the a millionth and one person to use it.
It's okay.
Of, 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 of people who go, it's a non-profit and they're doing their needs analysis, and they find women who are going to fetch water 5 kilometers away. And they're like, this is not the way to live. I have come from this very developed country. We have water in our taps every day. It will change their lives significantly. And so they go home and they value resources. They come and dig holes and channel holes and things like that. Then they find that people are not using those boreholes. And finding the women come back 2 years later to see how their project, or 1 year later to see how the project is going. And then they find people are not using those boreholes. They're like, what? We gave these people the solution. We gave them state-of-the-art boreholes. They just need to press a button and the water fills them. What is wrong with this pool? And one of the community men said, we have a very long day. We have to take care of our kids when they're going to school in the morning. We wash clothes, we are cooking, we are doing this. This is the only time, that 1 hour, the 2 hours we walk to and from the river is our almost now modern people who like saying self-care. And it's our time for self-care. We interact with ladies, we talk, we bond. If I am having an issue at home, I get a chance to look for advice from my friend. If I need, and our time for just to be just away from, what I do every day, and just change my scenery a bit. And that's why that's why what we do. And so this was billions or millions went going into this project, but a project that was not fully informed. I'm not saying people don't need water at home, but it would have been very beneficial for that. Why do you do this? Why do you go to the river? How can we meet your other needs of bonding, but still have you have water at home and things like that? So you have to have the end user mind, or doing it for yourself, doing it for them. So what do they need? And then how can you help them? How can you partner with them to meet that need?
So it is actually putting people at the center of it all, the people who need it actually.
Yes, it has to be that way, or no way.
So, ladies and gentlemen, please remember we are about to end our session. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share on our YouTube, which is Let's Create Africa on YouTube. Also on Twitter, Let's Create Africa. And then you can also find me on Facebook at waihigakmuturi live. Please remember to subscribe, like, and share. And also remember to send in your questions. I'm waiting to hear from them. But somebody is asking, and this is David. David is asking, how has your industry evolved and or will evolve in lieu of the pandemic?
Well, the shift really happened in a big way. One is probably something is experiencing a lot of remote work. So even as I take this call and as I finish this and go back to work, today I'll be working from home. Something that was not very accepted probably before. So there'll be some remote working, and even with our partners, like our headquarters is in Sweden. And now I have a feeling there will be less travel from the team from Sweden to where we have our programs, because we have learned and have started adjusting, realizing that some things, not all things, can be done from remote basis, digital and so on and so forth. So already this year we've done some training, training that we would need a workshop and we would need to be in a room together to do. We have done most of that training this year online. Of course, not every transition in this. We have partners who are in more remote places and might not go to us some of these tools and not be as comfortable to use them as some are. So we also need to strike that balance. That there are places and there are activities that definitely can be moved to be mortal or remote. I think a shift that we are seeing is in the direction of funding. Thanks to the pandemic, we've seen is maybe, especially in Africa. Let me talk about space that I'm in and probably have a bit more insight on. is issues like health systems. We don't have the strongest health systems in Africa. This has forced us to see it. Probably we knew it. Now it has magnified, and we can see that we need to invest more in our health systems. We need to invest more in digital. We have been saying this, for example, in Kenya, we've been talking about how can we digitize education. The government that has not gone as it should have. Probably it has not made the progress that it should have made by now. But now we've realized that if we thought about that more, if the infrastructure had been laid more at an this year would have been easier for students than it has been. Missed a lot of kids who are not in some institutions have missed education. They're learning for close to 9 months. Education is something else we really need to probably invest in, and that we are seeing also funding coming. A lot of community fund some of those things. Another route that I'm seeing are being very spoken out in terms of where funding could easily go to is in regards to enterprise development, entrepreneurship, businesses, and things like that. Again, we realize that a lot of people are struggling to make their ends meet. And so, funding is also going in that direction. How can we then support people who are not able to employment, who can also then start a way of generating income for themselves and really supporting that ecosystem such that businesses are not started in 6 months, in 3 months, they're not able to survive. If that's not having the right structure, not having funding that, not having just support systems to make sure that those businesses move to the next stage. Issues of market issues of value chains and just understanding what is needed where. And so that is a place that funding might really go to. So that is a change because probably the focus was not as much as it is now. It was there, but we also see changes in the direction of funding going forward. That's some things that have come to mind as I was thinking through the question.
Great. No worries. Somebody's actually also asking, and this is Macau. Macau is asking, please tell us your most favorite book so far that changed how you think about things.
That's an interesting question.
I know my people are interesting. I'm telling
you. I read a lot, but I found myself reading a lot of fiction. So book. What book comes to mind? A book that I read very recently, and this will be a funny one. So as already don't laugh, but it was very. I enjoyed it from that point of view, and it was homegoing. I read it, and it really spoke to me. And it is about the history of Africa and based on the homegoing.
Do you know by
so it shows Gyasi, Gyasi, if I'm not wrong, close to that. It's a Ghanaian writer. Gyasi.
Okay.
If I'm wrong, it's something close to that. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just about slave trade and as it was depicted from the West African coast and how it started, and then now we have generations later and a lady who the generations behind had come from Ghana but now was living in the States, was coming back home, and it was very in how this trade, according to the book, started. It was visitors from elsewhere, from the West coming, the things that they were using to change the mind of the leaders, because the villages were known to be sourcing for slaves as products, and they were the market for slaves. So these are leader who was convinced to source for slaves, and then lead village areas and so on. But it was just to see how those leaders were convinced. What caused them? It was sometimes marriage. It was sometimes they were given spices and things from the West that they had not seen, and those are used to convince them such that they betrayed, they sell people their product. For me, you've been convinced. If someone can convince you to sell someone else, I've really convinced you. But just looking at how that has not necessarily completely changed from now, how decisions are made by people in power, and they end up, sacrificing and just putting the millions at risk, and just and the ripple of effect of that, because then you have generation after generation from that point of slaves coming from Ghana, then slaves then living in different countries in the West, and you have generations being born in slavery, and then themselves starting families in slavery, because one chief somewhere was given a bag of spices and decided to sell people for slaves. And that really resonates with me. Of leader am I? Where is my, what kind of ambition do I have? What kind of where do I that is, and I know this is the farthest I can go. What are my principles? What are my values? And what does that mean in terms of I treat other people and the decisions I make? Knowing that decisions I make will have an impact on me, and not just on one person that I'm interacting with, but it has the possibility of having the ripple effect of generations to come. So I have to be a leader who has values, principles that are very clear, and knowing that my decisions have more impact than I can possibly imagine. So that book spoke to me. So yeah, homegoing. I don't know how to say the name, but yeah, I think that's the writer.
It's okay. We'll actually search it up. Thank you so much for that. Then also from this is Marcy. Actually, hey, another Marcy. Good. Marcy Wambua is asking, what's the one song you've had that has also turned around your life or perspective? I think also you can talk about the genres you're into. It would be okay also to mention that. Yeah, I know my guys are deep. That's what they are.
Wow, that's a tough one. A song has changed how I think, or has had impact.
Yes,
Wow.
or music generally, music genre or the likes.
Generally, I am very Afro-centric, so I love African music. And I'm not doing this because I'm on this platform. I like the vibe. I like the fast pace, the rhythm, so I like African music. It could be, you know, crazy. Um, um, this will not come, but yeah, it could be very modern. It could be a bit more classical. It could be just African sounds. Let me just leave it at that. I like African sounds for sure. So my playlist has a lot of that. I love vocals. If I was born in another life, probably I would be a singer. I love vocals. So any music really brings out voices. I enjoy, soft rock kind of music and modern country. I like, where you can really hear the voice and the ranges and stuff like that. So I would say that.
Nice. Then when it
I
comes
can't
to
think of one song. I can't think of one
no,
song.
it's okay. It's okay. No harm done. Then also the question is your one movie, the one movie you watched and you are like, oh yes, this is the one. Or genre of movie that you like.
Genre, I love action. I watch a lot of the action that sometimes is ridiculously fake. Like, oh my God, what am I watching? But I'll still watch it and watch it a second time. So yeah, I really like action movies. For the purposes of this particular discussion and all that we've been saying, I recently watched another very fake, in terms of very fictional, Old Guard. very 2020 movie. Yeah, actually, I'm sure it is a 2020 movie. Old guard action on people who and a few people who have these special powers they can do. They don't die if they're shot. They have superhuman strength and things like that. And then there were like a group of either 5 or 6 people, and the leader kept saying, "Why have we been doing this all these years? What change are we making when we save one village from being burned down?" And then now the story that ends showing how because they saved one village, they saved one boy who ended up becoming a doctor. Doctor worked in somewhere, and saved thousands of people and one. So what we were talking about earlier, the issue of ripple effect. That movie really, if you haven't watched it, if you watch those big things like I do. So yeah, that movie was good. Old Guard. It's yeah, that came to mind when you asked question. So yeah.
Good. And now to end it all, as we are coming, actually, we are now really at the end of it all. The last question is, when you hear "Let's Create Africa," what comes to your mind?
Let's create Africa. I think Africa is there. So it's already in existence. You're not creating something that does not exist. So what I think is now creating an Africa that we are proud of is now, I feel like it's creating an environment where more people have the possibility to become everything that they can possibly imagine of becoming. I feel like it's creating an Africa where you feel safe to bring your children. I feel like it's an Africa way to create that people from outside Africa really admire and want to be associated with. Already we have a lot of, but now it's to fortify that. So I think it's creating an Africa is everything that it could be. Like an Africa is miles away from being what it could possibly be. It's creating an Africa that with its potential. That's what comes to mind. What can we all do? The little thing that we can do to start creating an Africa that is amazingly everything it can possibly be. So mind.
No. Amazing. That's your perspective, and here we respect the opinions of others, so that's cool. And just to wrap up, Mercy is a Rotarian, a board member of a girls-only public primary school, a member in strategy committees for various community initiatives, and enjoys volunteering. She loves to travel and a good fictional book. Mercy, this brings us to the end of our show today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Finally, I've gotten deeper from this well, that is Mercy. and majority of the guys have also heard from you. And guys, you know how we do. This is Let's Create Africa, where we seek to inspire, inform, and highlight change makers in Africa. Please remember, this program has been brought to you courtesy of Let's Create Africa, Metropole TV, and B Lab East Africa, powered by Restream.io. And if you want to get a $10 credit, you can do that by signing up to Restream using the link we've actually put in our the content page that's on YouTube. So please feel free to go there and just see what we've put down, and you can get the link to actually sign up on Restream. Courtesy of us, you get a $10 credit and discount. Thank you so much, Mercy. We were with Mercy Murigi today, head of programs and actually partnership and programs, right?
Partnerships and capacity development.
Partnership and capacity development at Children's Mission Africa. Thank you so much, Mercy. That brings us to the end of this hour. Ladies and gentlemen, please, let's continue talking. Let's continue building, creating Africa. This is Let's Create Africa, and I've been your host, Waihigakmuturi. It's been a joy. Thank you. Have a good day. God bless.
Thank you, Ahiga. Thank you, everyone.